The following presentation is brought to you live from Dallas, Texas, for the International Association of Square Dance Callers 26th Annual Convention. This is tape 19, Voice 3, Critique 1 of 2.
Welcome this morning. We're going to be talking about voice quality this morning, and we are also going to spend most of the morning critiquing singers. Some of you folks that are arriving in right now, we've already drawn names for this session. For the people that... She says good. But we ran out of time yesterday talking about voice quality, so I thought I'd take just a very few minutes to try to get that started for you today. I want to start by talking about music and tone in general. Tone is produced when there's a kind of a periodic interruption of the airstream. You know, a sound wave bunches up air molecules and sends them in a pulsation, much like a stone being dropped in a pond sets up a ripple effect that the water rolls out. Well, that happens in the air as well. When I clap my hands like that, you hear a popping sound, but that popping sound isn't because my right hand is meeting my left hand. What's happening is that the air molecules that are between my hands, as they come together, they're forced outwards in a very violent explosion, and they set up a ripple effect. And that ripple effect travels through the air, and for those of you that are close at hand, it arrives and strikes inside your ear very forcefully, so it sounds loud to you. And for somebody that's further away, it's a weaker wave at that point, and it hits your ear, and your ear translates that wave of air molecules, and you identify it as somebody clapping his hands. It's amazing how sophisticated our ears can be. Now, the interesting thing about tone, musical tone, is that it's periodic, meaning that when you make that sound, every time your vocal folds open, they release a little burst of air. And that burst of air, coupled together with a whole bunch of other bursts of air coming out of that tone, creates a sound, a sustained sound that we can identify as a human voice. But that sound has more to it than just that pitch that you hear. The vocal folds, when they vibrate, they open and close and open and close, and they release little puffs of air as they do that. And how many times a second that they release that air determines what pitch it's on. This A natural, let's see if we got this machine that's working. Okay. That tone right there, if I were to sing that note, my vocal folds would be opening and closing 440 times every second. So you know it's a real fast thing. And if I go at that one, it's 220 times a second. And that's fast. That means there's a lot going on down there, but it isn't violent. It's just a little interruption of the air stream coming out of my lungs. The wind changes to sound, and you got a new form of energy. And it's really an interesting thing. But at the same time that my vocal folds are vibrating open and closed, they are also halved like a string, and the front half and the back half are vibrating at their own wave. And then they quarter themselves and eighth themselves. There's a complex waveform that's created by the actions of your vocal folds. And those things, those sub-harmonics, those sub-vibrations create harmonics. They create overtones. Now, those overtones go to make the tone richer and nicer. But when all things are said and done, as the sound leaves your throat, that buzzy tone that we talked about yesterday, and travels up into about 7.5 inches of your vocal tract, some of those sounds, some of those overtones, those frequencies, are blocked out, and others are boosted up, so that by the time you're finished, you've got a picture of the acoustical energy in your voice that is absolutely unique to you, to me, to you. Everybody has a unique pattern in their voice. But all of them share one characteristic, and that is that a tone is something, a sung tone, that's very regular in its vibration pattern, and in the human voice, it has overtones. Now, noise is something that happens when there isn't any regularity in the sound. When I clapped my hand, the waveform that left my hand was violent but irregular. When we put consonants on, that is a sound that is not a tone. It has an irregular waveform, and so we hear it as noise. And so the combination of tone that we produce in our throat and actions that we do with our lips and our tongue and so forth, those create the interruptions, the noises that we identify as consonants most of the time. Now let's see one other thing that's important to say is that you can have a tone that has noise mixed into it. And nobody likes noise very much, but everybody loves tone. Tone is soothing, tone is pleasant, noise is irritating, and we can intermingle tone with noise by carrying tension in our body. If, for example, I'm talking to you this way, there's a tone, but there's also some tension in there, which intermingles some noise, and the noise makes the tone less than pleasant to listen to. So the trick in your singing is to eliminate tension, because tension sort of adds noise to the tone. There are three basic places you can add tension. Or, a better way to say it, there are three places to look to get rid of tension. The first one is here in your midsection. If your midsection is really stiff and tight, so that when you go up to try to sing higher notes, your body quakes or shakes a little bit, that's going to create a vibration in your body that will not be very pleasant to listen to. There's a kind of a palsy quality that comes when the torso is overly stiff. The second place that you look to eliminate tension is right here on the collar of the neck, right in the voice box, the larynx and the muscles that suspend it. When those are tight and stiff, they will create tension. And when they create tension, it creates a stridency in the tone that makes it somewhat irritating to listen to. And the third place that you look for tension is right here around your mouth and your jaw, and it's usually in the jaw. The jaw gets stiff, at least that's where you can feel it, and it's usually a stiffness right here underneath the jawbone that most people identify as being the place where they get stiff. And when they get stiff, then they can't talk anymore, and some of that sound that's coming out of the throat gets sort of interrupted and noise gets mixed in. So the trick to having a beautiful voice is to eliminate unnecessary, unwanted tension. Now you notice I said unnecessary or unwanted tension, because the reality is relaxation isn't the answer. Relaxation would make me into a little puddle on the floor. There's controlled muscle activity going on in my body all the time, and yours even as you sit there quietly, half asleep after breakfast. The truth is, you have to have muscle energy going on, but what you really are looking for is coordinated muscle energy. Okay, so why don't we stop at that, and as we then go through critique, we can maybe come up with some answers like that. Vowels that you sing create tone. Consonants that you say create noise. Between the two of those together, we get language that is understandable. The tone is interrupted by periodic noise that we identify as consonants. Yes?
I would really like to have you explain those four positions.
That was so much fun.
That helped me.
And everybody feels so silly.
Yes, but it is such a good explanation.
Okay, well, I'll go back through that now. As a matter of fact, did you read my notes? Everybody keeps reading my notes and telling me what I've forgotten. There's a real simple way to govern your voice. You can change the quality of your voice almost at will, and so we're going to play a little game here. This is called there's a guy named James Kenny who teaches singing out in Los Angeles to recording artists. And he's written a book, and in that book he identifies 5 different positions, placements, if you will, where a voice can change its quality. And of those 5, number 1, nobody in the right mind chooses to do that on purpose. And the 5th position, nobody chooses to do on purpose. But they serve as outposts to help you know where the other parts are. 2, 3, and 4 are entirely appropriate, and we enjoy hearing that. But you'll be interested to find out where you naturally stand on this or make your sounds in this regard. This gets just a little bit tricky here, so I'm going to try to do it. The first position, you can actually identify it by putting your fingers on the tip of your nose. Oh, I wish I had a camera. Come on, this looks really good. This is so intelligent. And it comes, you bring your hands right down by the edge of the corners of your mouth, and you make a little megaphone right in front of your mouth. Now, you can imagine that the sound that you're going to produce can't vibrate, you don't allow it to vibrate inside your mouth any more than behind your right front teeth, continuing the implications of where that megaphone is. So it's very, very shallow. And this is what number one position sounds like. If I were to talk in the number one position, it would not let any vibrations go inside my mouth at all. So therefore the sounds have to be very up front. This sounds a little bit like Inspector Clouseau in The Pink Panther, which is an imitation of what the French people are supposed to talk like. And you understand in talking number one that the vowels are very hard to understand because some of the vowels normally wish to vibrate deeper inside your mouth and they can't, and so you have to modify them to stay forward. Can you... I would like to have you try this, but you are not as practiced as I, and so you therefore have to use your hands in front of your nose. So I would like to have you count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, you're not doing it right. You're allowing the sounds to go deep inside your mouth. It sounds a little Canadian too, doesn't it? No offense, please. Okay, one more time. I'll do it once, then I'll have you do it. And you feel where it vibrates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do it. Yes, when you do that, it feels a little bit like you're playing a kazoo. It's very forward and very twangy. And that's the name that it's given. It's called pinched and twangy. And nobody does that on purpose except for making a joke like I've just been doing here. But it's a real fun parlor game trick if you can learn how to do it. The second position is a very commonly used position. Most of the singers that are on Broadway now and many of the popular recording artists choose a number 2 position to sing, and they work to try to identify that singing position. In so doing, you can, I was squealing? Well, it was the number 1 position, that's all it was. Is right across the bridge of your nose, up where your glasses sit, down across your frown lines or smile lines, and so now it takes in the very front part of your mouth and includes up through your eye teeth in terms of depth. And it sounds like this. It's much more human in its nature, but it's still very forward and very bright, and it has lots of vigor in it. So would you count to 5, counting there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. That's it. And it sits forward. Now, when people do popular music, that is Broadway kind of thing, square dance calling, the more popular the kind of music is, the more we are inclined to hear we like to hear the resonance that is quite natural and therefore quite bright, quite forward. So a 2 position would be an attractive position for someone who is going to be a square dance caller, particularly if you're doing a patter call or if you're doing a really up-tempo number that's very bright and happy. You want to get upper frequencies, high frequencies into your voice, and a number 2 position is where you do that. Number 3 comes right by the corner of your eyes. It extends down across your cheeks and takes in the front half of your mouth. If you were to take your tongue and run across the roof of your mouth, this would intersect the high part of your hard palate where the roof of your mouth is at its tallest. And this sounds like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You guys try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, you, sir, have still got it down here in this number 2 position. Out by your cheeks. There you go. There you got it. Now try it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Now the 4th position. By the way, does anybody naturally talk there? Does that feel natural to anybody in the room? Sort of, maybe. But most people are saying not quite. Now let's go to 4 position. 4 position is right here at the jaw hinge. And it takes in now all of your mouth, including the space back to your molars, and it's a somewhat richer quality sound. Try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many of you talk naturally in that position? The vast majority of Americans do that. You've never thought of it before, but American English is a very throaty language. It's a very dark, covered language, and yet we have a twangy quality in our voices as well. The Europeans that listen to us are taken by the twangy quality of the voice as compared to the British English, which is less twangy and a little bit more elegant. And it has to do with another issue. But so we hear that twangy quality and we think, oh no, we've got a very bright language. We don't. Much of the sounds that we make are back in our throat, which makes us an uncivilized culture. The 5 position. Yes, all the Europeans who know. I spent a couple of years down in South America doing some missionary work back in the 60s. And it was amazing to me how the little children would tag along. Because, Americans, gringos walking down the street didn't really match the culture in these small communities where I was. And so they would go down the street and they didn't know English at all. And so instead they would try to make sounds that they thought sounded like English. And you know what sounds they made? I thought, that's not what I sound like. But to them, that's what I sounded like. So after I bopped them on, no, I didn't bop. So the 5 position. The 5 position is back behind the ears and it takes in some of the deep part of the back of the throat as well. But nobody intentionally talks like that because it seems to lower your IQ. It has a kind of a hollow quality to it because now all that's left are the low frequencies because they resonate well in the back of the throat, and they don't have any high frequencies, and so it sounds a little bit unintelligent, a little bit like Forrest Gump. So most square dance callers may feel like Forrest Gump but don't want to sound like him. So you probably won't want to use that. But along the way you might want to try it. Can you do that with me? Put your fingers behind your ears and let the sound sit in the back of your throat and count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's good. How many feel normal when they're talking that way? Is anybody going to admit it? Now watch what happens. I'm going to hold the same pitch, but I'm going to move between those 5 placements. And as I move between those 5 placements, you'll swear that the pitch goes down. But it doesn't go down. All I'm doing is using my vocal tract to either enhance the upper overtones in the tone, the higher frequencies, or to filter out the higher frequencies and enhance the lower frequencies. And as a result, it sounds like the pitch changes. Here's 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hear what I mean? It's the same pitch. You could do it because you could hear because I kept the same pitch. But the quality changed dramatically. And you have control of that. Now, as you folks tried that, have you figured out how you're able to do that? Anybody know what's moving, what's changing to allow that sound to change like that? It is your tongue primarily. It is the tongue. And the tongue either sits way forward in your mouth, and in which case it gets out of your throat, and therefore the tone is less muffled and the high frequencies have a chance to get out. Or as you progressively move further back, your tongue position moves further and further backwards, more and more of the sound is trapped in the back of the mouth, reverberated there. The upper frequencies are eliminated, and you end up with a semi-intelligent quality of voice. Now, I think it would be kind of fun for us to all try that. So would you stand up? Why don't we sing, "Oh, Give Me a Home"? Okay. Is that a good enough pitch? Should we pitch it a little lower? It's kind of early in the morning. Should we start there? Only I want you to use your hands. I want you to put your hands up in a number 1 position. And that's this one. So Oh, give me a home where the buffalo. Go to 2, where the deer and the antelope play. To 3, where seldom is heard a discouraged. 4, and the skies are not cloudy all day. 5, home, home on the range. 4, where the deer and the antelope play. 3, where seldom is heard a discouraged. 2, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Now go ahead and sit down. Isn't that kind of an interesting thing? You could tell that your own voice quality was changing a little bit. And the number 1 position, of course, is one that you would never choose to do on purpose. You'd have to be brainwashed into number 1 position, and also a number 5 position. But as you know, there are people who do that. There are people who by nature do it, and then those things are found to be socially irritating. So if you happen to be a square dance caller that tends to put your sound up in a number 1 position and it's too strident and bright, then you'll want to modify it. But you now have a tool to do that with. By the same token, if you tend toward a 5 position, then you'll want to have some people advise you, and you'll want to move out of that position. It's much more likely that you'll fall into a 5 position than a 1 position, because as I mentioned to you, and as all of you corroborated, your natural speech patterns tend to be deep in your mouth at about a number 4 position. And the ideal, the most balanced between the bright and the dark position is a number 3 position. The number 2 position is more popular and therefore would be very good for use in square dance calling. But that's foreign to many of you, and therefore you'll feel a little peculiar about it. Guido.
I was having a singing. I was trying to take singing lessons once, and the singing teacher told me I should have that yawning feeling in the back to sing, and this is what I felt right now, kind of getting sleepy, number 5 position.
Everybody knows that classical singers are a little short on the... No, that's what I am. The thing that marks classical singing from popular singing is that the mixture of resonances is way different. When you listen to somebody who's been trained classically, the thing that you hear about their voice is the voices seem deeper and richer than popular voices. Sometimes they hardly even sound human. They are so polished. And the trick that classical singers do is they learn to keep the sound forward and also open up the back of the throat so that they can get lots of depth in the sound but also maintain brightness in the sound. So classical teachers are always busy trying to get you to open the back of their throat. When in actual fact, if you want to sound like a classical singer, that's how you do it. If you don't want to sound like a classical singer, you don't want to do that. Most popular singers keep that space in the back of their throat relatively small. And then you get this kind of a sound, which is kind of popular quality, not sophisticated, or you can open that sound and you can get a classical quality. You hear the difference? Who wants to listen to a square dance caller sing like this? It may depend upon the song, you're right. But most of the time, you're looking, and this is another element that you want to think about. You want not high frequencies to the point that it's that 1 position, but you want high frequencies because high frequencies carry. And they penetrate the ear readily, and usually they're easily understood. The telephone, for example, does not cover the whole of the spectrum of the human voice. It only takes a small band of frequencies. And it's usually on the higher side in order to assist in intelligibility. And yet, isn't it interesting that, let's say Guido, he's got a very low speaking voice, and you hear Guido, and when he's in real voice, he's talking like this, and when he's on the telephone, he sounds a little bit like this, but you still identify Guido. And so our ears have an ability to sort of create the rest of Guido from that little piece of information there. Or any one of the rest of you, for that matter.
What is the connection between what we've just been talking about and voice projection?
Upper frequencies is what gives voice projection. It's very simple. It's the high frequencies. They have a tendency to travel longer distances, and they tend to go in a single direction. The low frequencies come out, they dissipate in all directions, and they decay fairly quickly. They don't travel as far. And so high frequencies is actually a desirable quality. Most of you, however, find your high frequencies with a knob on your record changer. And so I'm not going to say too much about that. You guys pretty much use your natural voices, and then you tinker with the dials to make you sound rich and full. It'd be kind of nifty if you took the time to do that isolation. Let's see, we got a gentleman here that was talking to me yesterday about resonance. Do you want to come up and be a guinea pig? And then we're going to get on to critiquing. Oh, you don't like the halo effect on my head? That's as close as I'm ever going to come to being an angel here. And get a little height. Yeah.
Now you feel. You're thinking in a whole different life now.
Yeah. And I'm brought back down to earth. What?
Oh, Arden's up there.
Yeah. This little disembodied voice. Okay. So now, you're Tom. Tom, tell me a little bit about what you mentioned yesterday.
Well, they say that when I call and use my upper things that I don't sound as good, but when I call in my lower voice, then I sound much better.
Most people have a problem with evenness registration. You remember we were talking about that yesterday. And most of us, especially the men in the room, find it easy to talk and to sing in the lower part of our voices. But God made us to have a high voice and a low voice, and most men live in their low voice, and they don't venture into their high voice except when something really bad happens in their lives and they get hit. And so that excursion into the high voice is almost always in moments of extreme pain or discomfort. Yeah, no, that's right. That's the strategy that some callers use to get the high notes. They just wear their underwear about 6 sizes too small. But getting back to the serious side of this, that the transition between that low voice and that high voice is hard to negotiate. And since some people don't know how to negotiate, they find whatever means they can have at their disposal to get up into that upper range. And so frequently, what starts out as a very natural and mellow and easy voice in the low range starts to pick up some stridency in the high range. And the stridency comes from tension. And often when it has to do with pitch, it's because the process of pitch change that should go down in Tom's voice box, the muscles inside of his larynx don't know how to function properly, and so therefore he takes some other choices, and those other choices help him to get the pitch, but they create some straining side effects along the way. So I'm going to hand the microphone to you right now. I want you to just do some musical phrasing with me, okay? What's a tune that you'd like to call to?
Dancing Moon. Has a lot of highs and lows.
Okay, well, just take a section, and we're not going to put the record on. We're just going to let you sing it in a variety of different ranges, if you know the melody, the tune. Well, we'll only do it a little bit at a time. Do it low now.
The dancing moon is on the water. Do you see it climb romantically? Left down a man, do now.
Now here he is now down in that pitch range. Da-da-dee-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, dee-da-da-dee-da-da-da-dum, something like that. Okay, so there's our pitch. Can you start it right there? Da-da-dee-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da.
The dancing moon is on the water. Do you see it climb romantically? Left out a man.
Okay, now we're sort of sitting right in the middle of his voice, and he's still successful. How about if we put it up to there? Da-dee-dee-dee-da-da-da-da-da.
The dancing moon is on the water. Do you see it climb romantically? I'm straining.
Oh, really? Could anybody tell? You could see it as well as you could hear it, couldn't you? And now do it again. And what are the words now? Remind me.
Dancing moon is on the water.
Okay. The dancing moon is on the water. Something like that, right? Okay, now watch, and I want you to hold out the word moon. This is the part that he likes the least of all, but we're going to just kind of isolate his little problem.
Which one?
That up there.
The dancing moon is on the water.
Now, tell me where you feel tension when you get moved. So these muscles right underneath here. Now, for the benefit of the people on the tape, this under here is a civilized place that we're touching. This is his chin going to the top of his larynx. And if he were to stick, as a matter of fact, I'm sticking my finger underneath his chin right now. And that muscle, it's called the genuhyoid muscle, that muscle is really tight on Tom. And probably the reason that it's really tight is that over the years, Tom has learned that he can sing higher pitches by tightening that muscle. And you remember, those of you that were in attendance yesterday, the pitch changing mechanism is that you have one cartilage in your larynx, the cricoid cartilage, and another cartilage, the thyroid cartilage, that sits on the top, and they pivot on each other like this. The thyroid cartilage pivots forward. Well, that muscle that I just described to you hooks right up here near the Adam's apple, just above the Adam's apple, and runs up to his chin. So when Tom tightens his jaw and raises his head, that muscle will take the thyroid cartilage and it will drag it in the opposite direction that it's normally supposed to go. It will stretch the vocal fold, and he'll get a higher pitch. But he also gets a really tight quality in his sound. So, isn't that an interesting solution to your problem? At least a diagnosis?
Just keep my head down?
Yeah. There's another thing. Would you slide between pitches? No. What is it? The what moon?
The dancing moon.
Oh, up there.
The dancing moon is on the water.
Here you go one more time.
The dancing moon is on the water.
Already better. Now let's get you standing up straight. All of these things are strategies that people learn how to do without realizing they're doing. They're just solving a problem. But it creates a byproduct that's a bit of a problem. And most of you that are not happy with the quality of your voices, it's because somewhere along the way you needed to solve a problem. You solved it in the best way you knew how, but it created some liabilities for you. And now you get habituated with that, and it's the devil's own problem to kind of overcome that. Can you put your head back where it touches my hand? Can I get you to do it this way? Notice I'm trying to get him to stretch his neck really long, because those of you who were in attendance the other day know that the muscles that suspend the larynx are hooked right back in this range. And so if you stand this way, with those muscles shortened, then the larynx is free to flop around and isn't as stable as it should be. So a long neck is really helpful. Now, can you still sing?
The dancing moon is on the water.
Now, I don't hear the same strain that I heard in there before. There's still some tendency to take your finger and stick it right underneath your chin. And if that gets tight, shoot yourself. or something. Go.
The dancing moon is on the water. Do you see it climb romantically?
How the strain's gone away? It's not gone altogether, but that muscle wasn't as stiff as it was before. It gives him a kind of an easy crooning quality, and that light voice is the male high voice. So in a simple answer, you've got some things that you actually can see to solve.
Just keep my head down and back and...
Yeah, neck long and back. No, it's actually more than that, but that's a good place to start. Good, thanks, Tom. Okay, give him a hand. It's time for us to do some critiquing. I don't even remember the order that you picked these things, do you?
Ron's second.
Okay, Ron is second. Was Danny, were you the first one? Or Frank? No, Frank was first. All right. Now, I don't know how long we're going to take on each of these. We're supposed to be done at what time? 10 o'clock? Holy smokes. 10:30. Okay, good. So we got to... Ron, why don't you watch your clock, or and keep me posted here, and I'll keep going along until you start tugging on my pant leg or something like that. Okay? Okay, Frank.
I've got several. I left most of my singing calls at home because I've been putting them on CD, and I actually have several problems. I've got a lot of bass in my voice, so I'll turn the tone clear to bright, and also have a high area.
Guess what? We're going to take that crutch away from Frank. We're going to put everything right square in the middle so that Frank is going to have to figure out how to tune his own resonances instead of using the machine to do it. Okay, so you got a pattern call here, do you?
I've got a couple singing records, I have 2 singing records I happen to toss in that are in a lower range that I like.
Okay, now I'm standing here analyzing Frank's voice as he's talking. Can you hear that he's got a deep rumbly voice some, but it's also quite a twangy voice? Everybody kind of with me on that? And the solution to that, or not the solution, but the explanation for that, is that when Frank talks, he has a very small opening at the back of his throat. That makes the twangy quality and brings some brightness into the sound. But his natural voice is a kind of a deep voice. So unless he wants a more mellow tone, he's in pretty good shape right now.
I can get down low, and I don't have any problem getting down low. But it's up high that I can run into problems.
The truth is, he's doing just fine. The one difference is that the top part of his voice is sweeter. It brings out the sensitive side of Frank. Okay, go ahead and put your record on. And what Frank is thinking, I'm talking in terms of resonance patterns in his voice, and he's equating that to low pitches and high pitches. And I'm not. When I make that noise, when I sing that note, it has some low overtones and it has some high overtones. And what you do with the 7.5 inches from the top of your larynx to the tip of your nose is to learn to filter the high frequencies or the low frequencies, or mix them together to make an even balance between.
Circle left, an old cowpoke went riding out on a dark and windy day. He rested on a ridge as he went along his way. Walk around the corner, seesaw your own. Out and left the corner, gal, weave the ring you roam. Yippee-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yo. Ghost riders in the sky.
Okay, that gives us a good place to start. You notice that he had a little trouble, as he already identified, getting up to the high note. And one of the reasons was that Frank was in first gear in his vocal automobile, and he was trying to get up around 45 miles an hour. And everybody knows what the first gear sounds like when you get in first gear and you start revving the engine up to about 45 miles an hour. It kind of whines and it doesn't like to get there, and you take your foot off the gas and it'll immediately drop down to a lower speed. So part of what Frank needs to do is to learn how to get up into that range in the right gear, to change gears, to let the register shift. All right? Now, there was another thing that I noticed right along the way, and that was that Frank wasn't standing up tall. Okay, so right there, we're going to take the range, yippee-yi-yi, yippee-yi-oh. Now, you remember, yesterday we were doing these little hey you kind of sounds.
Yeah.
Can you say,
hey you?
Can you go, hey you?
Hey you.
No sweat there. Hey you.
Hey you.
Hey you.
Hey you.
Now, notice, Tom, you notice he's doing the same sort of thing that you did? And he's got this little gullet buster here. Mm-hmm. Try it one more time.
Hey, you!
Holy cow, there's bands of steel there. If you could take those and put them right there, boy, would you be something. Okay, now feel your own chin.
Hey, you!
You know how tight that is?
Yeah, that's like a brick.
Put on. See, he thinks, is that a muscle? That feels more like a bone. Now put yourself underneath mine. Hey, you! Hey, you!
Yeah,
there's nothing there, is there?
There.
Except a double chin. There's a nice, soft double chin. Okay, so, can you let go there?
Hey, you.
Now put some strength to it.
Hey, you.
There you go.
Hey, you.
Yippee-yi-yay.
Yippee-yi-yay. Yippee-yi-yo.
Okay, that's already higher than he has to be. So let's put it back where it belongs. Yippee-yi-yay, yippee.
Yippee-yi-yay. Yippee-yi-yo.
And then he gets down where it's comfortable. Okay, that's a unique melody that you're just singing there. Let's put the record back on.
Circle left, an old cowpoke riding out on a dark and windy day. There's no lot of hair there for you to get a hold of. Walk around the corner, seesaw your home. Alvin left that corner again, weave the ring you roam. Yippee-yi-yay, yippee-yi-yo. Ghost riders down in the dungeon.
You know, when you shift gears in a car, it's not hard to tell what gear you're in, is it? You can tell the vibrations. And nobody gets concerned about a car being in a low gear when it's supposed to be in a low gear. And nobody gets concerned when you get into overdrive when you're supposed to be in overdrive. But everybody knows what it feels like to have a car in the wrong gear, a lower gear, trying to go fast. And everybody knows what it feels like to have a car in an upper gear parked on the incline where you have to start in third gear and get up over a hill. The upper gears make it possible to go fast, but they don't have any power. They don't have any torque to them. The low gears have plenty of torque, but they don't go very fast. And that's kind of the same situation with a human voice. This low rumbly voice belongs there because it's in the low range. And the upper voice, the middle voice is there where it's kind of mixed together. It's got the strength of the lower voice, but the sweetness of the upper voice. But when you go into the high voice, it's a lighter voice. And it takes a long time of getting strong with it until it has the same equal power to it. Now, you ladies who started in your high voice, that part of your voice is strong, and you go to the bottom of your voice and you have weakness. So, nobody gets a whole package. You get about 2/3 of the package, and then you have to kind of want the rest of it and figure out how to do it. Now,
it still feels like a brick there.
Sure, but one of the things, that's the answer. It's looser today than it was yesterday. And one of the things you can do, Frank, is that you can actually take the newspaper or your favorite novel or poetry or the Bible or whatever you do that you read and take 5 minutes a day, just stick yourself in the gullet and start reading out loud and figure out a way to quiet the base of your tongue. Now watch. I'm poking myself in the throat, and I'll let you poke me in the throat here. Okay. See that? It's relative. Now I'm gonna tighten that up a little bit, and you can feel that it's kind of stiff where you're stiff. And I'm gonna count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Same pitch, different resonance pattern, right? And so, Guido, when you were talking about this teacher trying to get you to open up your throat, part of what the teacher was trying to get you to do, and would be all of you if you're taking lessons, release that muscle, and when that muscle's released, the constriction that's at the back of the throat relaxes and gets out of the way, and then that twangy quality is replaced by a more rich and mellow quality. So one of the diagnostic problems is this tension right underneath this muscle that's between your chin and your larynx. And so if you can let go of that thing, you're going to be in really good shape. And you notice that you could get up into that high range, and it didn't hurt. It's sort of like he hit a high note and it didn't hit him back. That's a nice thing to have happen. All right, well, that's good. Okay, this is Ron Counts. Ron, I'm going to get you to confess here. Okay. What is it that we're going to be looking for?
Probably tone matching and projection.
The first one that he mentioned, tone matching, is a significant challenge for some of you, is it not? The skill of learning how to hear a tone, to reproduce it inside your body, and have it come out matching the pitch that you intend it to match, is a skill that's most easily learned, I'm sorry to tell you, between the ages of 1 and 5. And if you were fortunate enough to have been raised in a home where there was a lot of music making, where your parents sang and you sang, or whether you watched Sesame Street, or you participated in the children's chorus at church or in the community, then you have a leg up, because that skill is almost as basic as the skill of walking. However, it is possible for adults who have missed that skill to go back and pick it up. It just requires a great deal of patience.
Brand new record.
You say, would you like to hear that again?
Four ladies chain across that Mingo, turn and chain those ladies right back home. Then you join hand circle to the left, around you go. Alaman left that corner, weave the ring. Where the river is winding, big nuggets are finding. North to Alaska, no port the nush is on.
It's the segment North to Alaska that actually presents most of the tone. You noticed that as he was going along giving his commands, you were actually singing a kind of a nondescript pitch. It was neither identifiable or dissonant. It didn't matter. You were just sort of talking along, almost as if you were patter. But then you get to the North to Alaska, and you've actually got a recognized tune that everybody else out there knows it. And if you're not where it is, then you're going South Alabama instead of North to Alaska. Right? Okay, so let's take it. Can you sing North to Alaska by yourself?
North to Alaska, go north, the rush is on.
Now, you got the words and you got the rhythm, but the pitches weren't right. Yeah. So it's been a long time since I've known this tune. All of you guys. Maybe this Colin record has got a different melody than when I was growing up. When I was growing up, it had a different melody than that. I remember the tone going, north to... I don't remember it. Okay, we'll listen to it.
All four ladies chain straight across that ring. Roll away and circle to the left round I sing. Four ladies gonna roll away, circle to the left and then Alabama left with the corner girl gonna weave around that ring. Do a do-side, take her by the hand and you promenade. Turn north to Alaska,
yeah.
North to Alaska, go north to Alaska, go north, the rush is on. If two couples on a promenade.
I'm at a distinctive disadvantage because I don't know the tune here anymore. But in North to Alaska, it has North to Alaska. It goes down. And that's what I thought. I thought it went da-dee, and all of the rest of you guys are going North to Alaska. Well, that's okay, too. But, yes, got a comment here in the back. Hang on. This sort of kills spontaneity, doesn't it?
Part of the problem on a lot of songs is that there's not a whole lot of, I'm not sure what the word would be, but melody.
That is the right one.
There's not a real strong melody line in there.
Well, that's right. Now, I got to tell you though that this is plenty musical. And who do I even need to know who the caller is here? He's got a real nice voice, whoever he is. Well, all right. But the case is that he knows by nature he knows what the harmony is and the harmony flow. And he manages to string together some notes that are pleasant to listen to and harmonious, even though they don't create a great deal of melody. But you know what? When you're trying to give commands, you don't want to be distracted by a whole lot of melody. You want to be able to give the commands clear and straight. So he does that pretty good. And then when you get north to Alaska, go north to Russia zone. That's not even the tune, but it's close. So let's say that were the tune. Can you sing north? Can you match that pitch?
North.
He got it, right? North to...
North to...
He's hunting it a little bit, isn't he? North to...
North to...
He got it. Now, this process, what that Ron is going through, is just an identification process, and the square dance records go by too fast for somebody that doesn't have that skill already built into their system. So you have to kind of slow it down and figure it out. And that's where some of you may be at a slight disadvantage. Watch. North. Your
North.
turn. Two.
Two.
Whoops. North.
North.
North. There he is. And that's exactly the process that a human being goes through. Doesn't matter if you're 2 years old or if you're 50 years old. That's the process you go through. You just kind of fuss around until you can get them to match. And once you get them to match, you say, oh, that's how I do that. And the next time you don't have so much trouble. North.
North.
Two. That was interesting. You notice how he went to raise that pitch? North two. This is a bigger problem than I thought, isn't it? But the truth of the matter is that most men dealing with the middle of their voice have figured out that solution rather than the one that God created for us, which is down inside the larynx, is much more efficient. So you go again. North two.
North two.
North two. Time out. Time out. Match it. You notice he can't do it. He's in a different range. And the reason that he's in that other range is because he can't figure out how to find the middle register of his voice. And not having access to the middle register of his voice, he's stuck with that low register, and that low register doesn't encompass that pitch. It's really simple. As soon as he figures out where that middle register is, that pitch will be easy to sing. So, time out. Let's go. Hey, you.
Hey, you.
Yeah, right there.
Hey, you.
That's it. Now, hey, you.
Hey, you.
That's right. Hey, you.
Hey, you.
Nope. Hey.
Hey.
There, you got it. Hey.
Hey.
Now, what does that feel like to you? How do you do it?
Most of it right in here.
That's exactly right. It's right and proper that when you're in the low part of your voice, you'll feel it rumble in your chest. When you start moving upwards, it'll still hold on to your chest, but it'll start picking up some vibrations in your mouth and in your cheeks. You get higher, and it'll start to move up toward your eyes, up into the bones of the face called the mask. But if you're not accustomed to having those sensations, and they make you nervous, you're not going to go there, and you won't get those pitches. So when you get to the word to Alaska, north to that's right on that shifting point where it's got to go up towards your eyes. So I'm going to isolate that note. No, time out. Listen carefully, and you'll try to sense where the vibrations are in my body. Say, hey, you.
Hey, you.
Higher. Hey, you. More excited. Hey,
you.
That's it. Hey.
Hey.
That's the pitch. Now, where does that vibrate?
Right back in here.
Okay, can you put Alaska there? Almost. Now, way up higher. It's not your eyebrows, it's the pitch. Isn't it funny? We do the things that we have to do. You watch singers that are feeling nervous, and their hands are down there going, I want to help. But this is one of the reasons why you've got a challenge. You got some unevenness in your scale. Let's do a little other thing. Will you go, You notice he goes to a certain place, and at that point, he starts to raise his head. Okay, this is going to take a little bit moments, and that's all right. Can we do this? I'm winning so far.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. And you notice that immediately when he made it, he yodeled out of it. He didn't much like that sensation. It affected his sensation, his feelings of his own gender identity. That's it. That's right. That's right. Do it again. Oh, that's right. Now go.
Yeah.
All right. And he says, would anybody want to listen to that? And the answer, truthfully, is no. But it's a progressive kind of thing. All right. So, Alaska.
Alaska.
Whoops. Now go. You feel where that vibrates?
Yeah.
Alaska. There, you're right. Alaska.
Alaska.
Now he's in the right range. How's that different than what you're used to?
I don't know. I don't know.
Those are sensations you're not familiar with.
No, I'm not.
No, and that's the reason that you're having trouble finding that pitch, is because those sensations escape you, but they're not escaping you now. You're getting them. So here you go again. Wine.
Wine.
Oh, he's good at that. That was great. All right, again.
What?
Wine.
Wine.
Alaska.
Alaska.
All right. So now go north to Alaska.
North to Alaska.
Now notice that once he found that middle range, he didn't want to leave it. Bless your heart. And so, but the other one's going north to Alaska.
North to Alaska.
That's kind of close. Let's go again. North to Alaska.
North to
Whoops, time out. North
to Alaska.
Wine.
Wine.
Alaska.
Alaska.
So he comes to the chorus and he says, hold on here, folks. Just hold your spot. There it is, Alaska. Ready to move along. So the reality is that you've got some work on toning, right? Matching pitch. Now, how are you going to do that?
I guess have her listening and doing that sort of stuff, up or down.
That's right, and that is the short-term solution. The easiest thing to do, however, is to I'm trying to think if there's a machine that I know about. Some of these electronic machines you can program with a melody in them, and then you can slow them way down. But that's a keyboard machine. And the human voice doesn't sound like that. And often when a person's trying to learn how to match pitches, they need a voice that's just like their own, that's similar. And so a woman trying to teach a man to match pitches, that's hard for a man to do. Can't find and identify the same sounds because they're an octave displaced. So another man standing doing like I'm doing would be the easiest and best solution. So maybe what you'd like to do is to find yourself, where do you live?
Colorado Springs.
Oh, there's a college in Colorado Springs. You just go to the School of Music or the College of Music right there, and you find out if there is a music student, could be a young music student, that would be willing to tutor you a couple hours a week. And they'd probably come out and do that for about $5 or $6 an hour. And you just have the tunes, and you can't do it with the record on. You just have the students sing the pitch, you match it, da ba ba dee da dum, go no da 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 dee, and by the time you're finished with that, you can get through in an hour's span. You can get the melody of a call, and then that person comes back on a regular basis once a week or twice a week. And students who are in schools of music across the United States spend their freshman and their sophomore years learning how to match pitches, learning how to what it's called solfege, to move their voices up and around, and it's a skill that everybody has to learn, and that'd be a way that you could do it. If you do it mechanically, I think you're going to be unhappy along the way. Okay, Ron, thank you very much. Okay, who's up next? Danny? Yeah, okay. It's True Confessions time, Danny.
I have trouble going low.
Okay. What you going to sing?
Can you hold it for you? Some broken hearts never mend.
You could just say some broken hearts never end.
That's right. Circle left. Off the black cigarette. Start this day like all the rest. Left dollar man, you know, side door down. Left dollar man, and weave the ring. Some broken hearts never win. Those side door and promenade, my friend. Some tears will never dry, and my love for you will never die. In the night, got a willing woman holding me tight. Left dollar man, you know, side door now. Left dollar man, and you weave the ring.
Actually, this is a really fine This is a very fine call for your voice. Most of the time, Danny, most of the time Danny sings in the middle part of his voice, and this song sits there with a very few excursions up, and then a couple of those down to there, and that's where you sort of da-da-dee-dee, dee-da-dum. Now, that's an interesting challenge, but I think it's available to you. I heard you do it, but I heard you kind of taking a strategy to push down into that range rather than relaxing down into that range. So let's find a couple of approaches that might help with that. The first one, you were in here yesterday when we were kind of doing the engine revving thing. Can you do that for me? No, not like a bulldog, just like in a car. Yeah, I want you to don't put it down in a low range. Put it in a comfortable range. Now, in the trough of that thing, you know, it goes, and it has a kind of a fluctuation of pitch. Down in the low trough of that, you're going to start feeling some vibration right here underneath your sternum, right? Go after that again. You feel it? Okay, that's the evidence that your voice has slipped into that full chest mode. And you want to kind of isolate it and say, how do I do that? So, and just kind of let it do its thing. Okay, now put some strength to it. From what we talked about the other day, when there's a breathy tone, what's wrong? Too little air is actually the right answer. There's too little air. The air that's coming out isn't strong enough to trigger the Bernoulli effect, and therefore it leaks out through the vocal folds. Now, that strike you as strange. He's down there trying to grind out some sound, and it's coming out breathily, and maybe it had never crossed your mind that maybe you need to up your airstream. So, let's do this, ha.
Ha.
No sweat there. Do that with 30% more air.
Ha! I can project. It's just the low part of my voice I can't get.
Yeah, not that. I'm going to go to plan B here for a second. Can you do one of those fritones that I showed you yesterday? Doesn't have to be at the same pitch level. Everybody, that's a fritone. Now that's hard for you to do. You have to kind of just hold yourself. Got to hold yourself just right and hope the wind doesn't blow, and you're going to be all right. Huh? And yet you can get used to that. And in order to make that fritone, your vocal cords have to be in great relaxation. And Danny's are not always in relaxation. They're kind of intense things. Danny, because of the projectability of his voice, has a tendency to be on the pressing side of the ledger, from those of you that were there the other day. That means more muscle activity in the throat and less aerodynamics. And if he would bring that to a greater balance of aerodynamics, there would be less tension in his vocal folds, and he'd be able to access the lower part of his range. So I want to go back and have you go, ha. The breathy one. Ha.
Ha.
Now, I liked that. I didn't like the breathiness at the beginning, but the tone that followed after it had a greater balance of breath moving through it, and therefore was less tense. You may not have been able to pick that up. Let's go again. Ha.
Ha.
Now, you see how easy that was? And you were picking up some stuff down in the lower chest that you didn't pick up before. Do that again. Ha.
Ha.
Okay. Now, how does the tune start? Da-da-dee-dee. Coffee black, but do it with that sort of sighing sound. Coffee black.
Coffee black.
You notice that all of a sudden there's no air there. Ha, 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 ha. Just do this for you. Just ha, 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 ha. You notice he's matching my pitch, and he's doing it easily. There's plenty of resonance there. Now just do this. Ha, he, ha. That's coffee black.
Ha.
Okay, one more time.
Ha, he, ha.
Now put the consonants on it. Coffee black.
Coffee black.
Keep the breath moving.
Coffee black.
One more time. Now, one of the problems for Danny is this doesn't feel like he has control over it. He can't push it around. He kind of has to just let it be. Learning to sing low notes is like raising children. You try to push them to the place they're supposed to be, You'll get away with it for a little while, and then you'll be real sorry. But if you treat them real nice, and you just kind of coax them into that place, and lo and behold, they'll go there on their own, and they'll like it pretty good. I can speak from personal experience, negative experience. Coffee black.
Coffee black.
Cigarette.
Cigarette.
No, not
Cigarette.
You hear it? Now, all of a sudden, because he's moving some air, he's not having to strain. And remember what I told you at the start of this session? The tone that you create is periodic, and it's pleasant to listen to. But when you do straining things in the middle, you create noise in the midst of it, and that creates a tone, a stridency to the tone that we don't like very much. So here you go again. Got lots of air moving. Coffee black.
Coffee black.
Cigarette.
Cigarette.
Keep going.
Start this day like all the rest. Do-si-do.
No, you'll notice he went, do-si-do, and then he clipped off the breath. What he's not used to doing is keeping his breath stream moving along. So, here we go. Coffee black.
Coffee black.
Cigarette.
Cigarette.
Start this day.
Start this day like all the rest.
Keep going.
Left dollar man, you do-si-do now. Left dollar man, and weave the ring.
Now, already that's a big improvement in my estimation. You didn't feel like you had any control over those notes, though, did you? Okay, Hitler, just get over it. He's got to keep everything with a rigid control. You got to leave. I'd suggest you ease off your voice a little bit. Now, I'm going to put the record on again, but the thing that's going to be hard for you to know is when your air is moving, because that's not something you've watched before. So I'm going to give you a little tool. Most of you can figure out how your air is moving through your throat by not letting it move through your throat. Close your throats as if you're going to lift a heavy object, and you can feel some pressure build up underneath your throat there, can't you? There's right in this area, there's a sense of pressure. Now, the opposite of that is you feel the airstream moving through the back of your throat? You've got some sensitive spots back there that you can track that. Now I want you to go just a plain old SH. You can feel the sound passing through your lips, but you can also feel the stream of air moving up your throat, can't you? Now go. Now the stream of air is there, you're vibrating voice, but you're also feeling air moving, right? Now do this. Try it. Here's another alternative. Can you do a lip trill, lip buzz? But down there. You notice that he has a hard time getting his lips to buzz down low. His lips will buzz if there's enough air there. If there's not enough air, his lips will stop buzzing. So that's a signal that you could use anytime that your lips stop buzzing, you've cut your airstream off. And since you're good at it, cutting your airstream off, you won't realize that you're even doing it until your lips stop buzzing. So here you go. Now just do the tune with lip buzzing. Whoa. Just notice his lips stop buzzing? Okay. Now, as frustrating as that is, and how quick it is, that's a tool that you could use to. And so, if you've got some of those low tunes, or really anywhere, while you're driving along in the car and you want to be reminding yourself of the songs that you're singing, lip buzz them. And it will be a tool that will help you to figure out how you got to keep your air moving. And the first thing you're going to say is, "Good grief, this takes a lot of breath." Amen, brother. That's the right answer. Okay, thank you very much, Danny. Okay, is it Tim?
Yes.
Come on up, Tim.
I didn't bring no records, but just.
I got one you can borrow.
You got one I can borrow?
It's a global.
I'll use anything. It don't make a difference. I didn't bring to make anybody sound good. I won't do that one. You got chicken.
As a matter of fact, let's get that one. The one that he doesn't want to do is.
Well, give it to me. I'll try anything. I'm willing.
Okay, what are we trying to solve here? You got any particular thing?
You've never heard me, have you?
Well,
you know what to try to solve. There's quite a bit. I don't care. Just anything that I'm doing wrong make me sound better, make me do something better right. More better. That's how we say in Texas. I said I didn't bring no records. Really didn't plan to be here, but I'm glad to be here. Thanks to Dottie for supplying music. Well, goodbye, Joe. Me gotta go, me oh my oh. Hey, me gotta go, pull a hero down the bayou. Me and Star right in the middle of the land, oh me oh my oh. The left Alabama with your left hand, weave the bayou. With jambalaya and a crawfish pie and a filet gumbo. Well, you swinging whirl in the promenade, mama share me oh. Pick guitar, hail fruit jar, and be gay oh. Hey, son of a gun, we're gonna have big fun on the bayou. Texan trying to sing Cajun.
I got to tell you, one of the problems with this guy is he's just too laid back. He's got no enthusiasm in his voice at all, does he? Actually, it's a real infectious quality of sound, isn't it? It's lots of fun to listen to. You have access to all of your range. You may not want to take any of the advice I'm going to give to you. Because
of... I do with my wife.
Are you telling me that you're pretty well practiced at this process?
But I'll take yours.
Okay. One of the things that I hear is that part of the excitement comes from a tightness in your throat. Do you ever find your throat getting tired through the course of the dance? It's not very much different than where the situation was with Danny here just a moment ago. Some people, in order to get the intensity in their voices, will tighten up the throat muscles, and the first thing that revealed that you do that is that you squeak when you come off some of your notes. I think you do that on purpose, but I'm not entirely sure. Is it some people will use that little thing at the end as a styling tool, but it's really there to camouflage the fact that they can't figure out how to get off the note any other way. And often that's what goes on when people are styling. They do things to camouflage their trouble spots. And I think you've done a good job of that. But you might want to get to the point where you can sing me oh my and not have to go me oh my and squeeze off of it, you know. Okay, so now the same technique that let's see if we can find a different approach to this thing. I'm going to get you to start again.
You're not going to pull my hair, are you?
Well, there's more to get a hold of. Actually, if I don't pull your hair, I just may pull your leg here. We're not even really sure, because I enjoy doing that too. So your posture is pretty good, but what happens is I think that if you're putting yourself on a scale between a person who used no air over here, that's really tight, and a person that's really breathy over here, that your position is kind of about 2/3 of the way over toward tight. And I wouldn't want you to move over too far, but if you move that direction a little bit, you'd feel like you were moving a long way. So I'm going to ask you to sing the same tune again, only this time I want you to sing it in what you think is a breathy approach.
Okay.
It won't be nearly as much fun. It won't be as high energy initially because he's trying to figure it out. I'm taking his personality away from him a little bit here. But I'm real confident that if he figured that out, his personality is so irrepressible that it would come out no matter what you put a lid on it, and it'll slip out the sides.
With the record? Or
with the record. But it's this kind of whisper in the ear.
Well, goodbye, Joe. Me gotta go, me oh my oh. Me gotta go, pull the hero down the bayou. Me and Star right in the middle of the land, oh me oh my oh. Left Alabama with your left hand, weave the bayou.
Can you all hear a difference in that? Yeah. He didn't lose anything, did he? Nope. What I heard is that he picked up some stuff that it was much richer quality, and that richer quality. Now, you might be interested to know this. That what causes the richer quality in the voice is that when the vocal folds they hook at the front, right inside the Adam's apple, and they hook at the back, attached to some cartilages called the arytenoid cartilages. So they kind of get stretched like rubber bands. There are some muscles that are embedded inside the vocal folds that when they tighten down, they shorten the vocal cords, they make them more intense and a little tighter sound. There are some other muscles that take these two vocal folds and swing them open and closed, and those muscles that bring the vocal folds closed can also be very intense. And when all of those muscles get really intense, then the vocal folds get kind of stiff. And when they get stiff, air pressure builds up underneath them, and they blow apart, and they let a little bit of air out, but then they immediately slap shut again because they're tight, because they're not flexible. And so they don't part very far, and they don't let out very much air. So it's a very intense but non-pleasant quality. Not that yours is not pleasant. I'm going to the extreme. But when you let go of that tension, when the air parts the vocal folds, since they're sort of at ease and relaxed, they part wider. That releases a bigger burst of air, and so there's greater intensity in the quality of the sound, and it also eliminates some of that edgy, tight quality along the way. So right off the bat, that's what you picked up. As your vocal cords relaxed a little bit more, they were more able to produce a whole sound instead of just a part of a sound. Did you feel like you were just blowing a lot of air?
Well, that's how I feel most of the time. But yes, I feel
you
like
and I ought to go on the road together as a 1-2 punch.
That's no, I did. Yeah, it felt more breathy, like I was, I don't know, singing Hank Williams opera style or something.
No, actually, you just need to be a wind machine. Singing is wind machine work. It's the wind is what makes the thing happen. I'm going to get you to do it one more time. I noticed you still kept your squeak, and that's just fine. That part of personality is just great. You can do yet more.
Well, goodbye, Joe. We gotta go, me oh my oh. I squeaked.
No, that's all right. But you notice when he first got started, it was like this. You don't want to make that. That's not. Now you do sound like Hank Williams being an opera singer. Instead, you don't want to build up pressure underneath there. And when you pressurize your voice, you'll feel it, sort of like imagining yourself to be some sort of a bullfrog that goes ribbit. You know, there's this big pressure, clamp, and like you're going to lift a heavy object. You know what that feels like? You can feel the sphincter close in your throat. That sphincter valve is your vocal folds, closing tight to keep the pressure in your lungs so that you can lift a heavy object. You don't want that reaction when you're singing, and you got it just a little bit. Okay. So, will you do this for me? Well, let's try the same thing we tried with Danny. You feel how loose it feels in your throat? Ja. Me oh my.
Me oh my.
Now, see? Start the tune.
I'll sing it.
Yeah. But loose like that.
Goodbye, Joe. Me gotta go. Me oh my oh. Me gotta go. Pull the hero down the bayou. Men start right in the middle of the land, oh me, oh my, oh. A left island man with your left hand and weave the bayou.
Now, one of the interesting things was that he thought he was just moving a whole bunch of air all the time. That's all he was thinking about. Did it sound breathy to you? No, that is the Bernoulli effect at work. The more stream of air you put on there, the more the suction is, the more complete the closure is, the better the tone is. If you don't use air and you squeeze, you get an intense but strident, yours isn't, but it was on the way to being, tight sound. If you relax your vocal folds and you don't put enough breath through it, then you get this. It's a kind of an anemic quality. So air is really the issue that solves about 70% of the problems. Now I'm going to let you put that on. I'm going to leave you alone for a second so you can feel what it feels like when you get up in the high range. Because most guys, as I've already said to you, have a tendency to squeeze off when they go up high. So whatever starts off being really nice down low gets more problematic up high. But if you can just persist with it and get used to it, you can get really good. Okay, Tim?
With or without music?
With music.
Well, goodbye, Joe. Me gotta go, me oh my oh. Me gotta well roll the hero down the bayou. Men start right in the middle of the land, oh me oh my oh. Left alley man with your left hand, weave the bayou. Well, jambalaya and a crawfish pie and a filet gumbo. Promenade, mama share to me oh. Pick guitar, bell, brick jar, and big gay-o. Well, son of a gun, we're gonna have big fun on the bayou.
Now, the place that Tim's going to be most grateful for this adjustment in his voice is after he's been singing for an hour and a half. Isn't that right? You know what I'm talking about.
I'm bad about getting tight and scratchy at the end of dances.
It gets scratchy at the end of the dance, and that's
losing range.
And all three of those things are dead giveaways that with just a better breath stream, he wouldn't have to work so hard at it. One of the things you can count on, folks, is that when your voice starts to rasp, when you get that kind of noisy quality in the sound, there isn't enough breath flowing. When it feels tight in your throat, there's a pretty good chance that it's not enough breath moving. There are other things that could enter in there, but getting your air to move is the real issue here. Now that means that you have to transfer most of the activity from your throat, which starts to become passive, down to your wind machine. That means you got to breathe deeper. You got to get a better column of breath, and you got to be able to use it. And you weren't here the other day, but we set up a pattern where we tried 3 different things. Now I'll do it with you, and then I'll have you take a rest. Would you do ah, ah, ah,
Ah, ah, ah.
You notice he's really good at that? Now do this.
I'm trying to get a word in edgewise at home.
And that's about as much as he gets in, is the Okay, now try this. You might win your wife over if you ha, 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 ha. Good. Now you don't want to sing that way, but there's a mid ground where you go ah, 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 ah. But you hear there's a slight pop right at the beginning of his sound. Start it with as if it had a silent H on it. Ha, ha, ha. Now he's starting to get the handle on it. And that puts the airstream in motion before the vocal folds start to go vibrating. And it's a kind of a gentler attack. Ha, ha, ha. Now I'm hearing the H. Hide the H. Make it silent. Ah. Now it's glottal stop. Now listen carefully. Here's ah, ah. You hear pop at the beginning? Ha. You hear the H? Ah, ah. You hear how there's no real hard beginning, but it starts right there. Ah, ah, ah. That's the sound that you're going to want to sing with, because that's the sound that has longevity to it. That's the production that when you use that, you can get kind of loud, you can get kind of soft, you can go for long stretches of time, and your voice won't tire. Some folks, like Tim, I'm betting, I don't know this, but by the end of the night, Tim probably has some thick mucus on his vocal folds. He's having to go clear that stuff off of there.
Bring that bit.
Okay, and the reason for that is that there's enough pressure in his vocal folds, there's enough irritation as the vocal cords vibrate against each other, that the throat, in self-defense, begins to secrete a thicker mucus as a lubricant to keep the damage minimal. But in the process of doing that, it starts to make the voice rasp. And so you're all forever going trying to blow that stuff out of there, when the easiest solution is just not to irritate it in the first place, to get air moving across. So will you try that, Tim?
Okay.
That's very good work. Very good work.
Thank you very much.
Okay, give him a hand, would you?
No. Oh, okay. I was watching Tim breathe there, and how much does his diaphragm come into there? I don't believe he was using his diaphragm much. Is that part of it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's right. I'm not going to put that one on tape. The diaphragm sits here. Say what? Whom?
That big fella back there.
Okay, well, come on back at the next hour and we're going to go right at you. But the breathing needs to happen down low. And you'll notice that Tim, to preserve his girlish figure, kind of keeps a tight tummy. And when he goes to breathe, he goes, and the upper part of his chest does all the work. That's not as efficient. But you know what? If you'll get started with your wind and making it move, then your body at some point is going to say, you know what? I'm not doing my breathing as efficiently as I could. Next time I go to CALLERLAB, I'm going to figure out how to manage my breath. But the first thing is to start using it. And when you start using it, then you'll discover that you're needing a more efficient way to manage your breath. But the first thing is to solve that one little problem. But you know what? Tim's a good singer. He could not change that in one iota and it'd still be acceptable, no doubt.
It makes you want to dance.
You bet. But Tim pays the price for that high energy, and it wears on his voice. So if he can figure out a way to keep the energy in his voice, as you saw him do, and not be so hard on his voice, he's going to be the winner, and ultimately the people that he calls for are going to be the winners, because he'll be able to do it for a longer period of time, and it'll be pleasant at the end, just like it is at the beginning. We're due to take a break here, but we're going to come back here in about 20 minutes. We'll, right at the beginning, I got some slips of paper up here for those that would like to be critiqued in the second part of this session. Come on up and drop your names in, and then we'll draw them right at the start of the next session.